and welcome into Getting Help from Uncle Sam. If you're a longtime viewer of this television show, you know 10 years ago we sat here in this studio and we did an hour-long show with two candidates that were running for the 2nd District of the U.S. House of Representatives. And we did that for a purpose. We wanted both of them to be together on the same set to address any issues that they may have, especially from that situation where you might have commercials that are running in the area. And we had invited Bobby Bright to come because initially he was going to be going into the race as a Republican, but he was told, we've already got our guy. So Bobby, being the kind of guy he is, said, look, I still want to serve the people here, so he had to do it as a Democrat. And bottom line, he won that race. And today we have with us Bobby Bright. 10 years later, we all still look the same, don't we?
Very same. I think y'all look a little younger.
Oh, points.
But you know, like I mentioned in the open there, Bobby, it's a situation where that's all we continue to hear is that you're a Democrat. Now, you're running on the Republican ticket as a Republican.
Yeah. Let me clarify some things
Okay,
right here.
Good.
When I was on the Democratic Party, I voted conservatively. People sometimes misunderstand what the labels mean.
Mm-hmm.
To me, back then, and even now, the labels are not that important. What's important,
not anymore.
What's important is a person's record.
Yes.
Now, if you look at my record from the time I was Mayor of Montgomery all the way up through the time I was in Congress, my record has always been conservative. I've always been very frugal as far as taxpayers' dollars are concerned. Did not raise any taxes on anybody myself to vote for it. And what we tried to do is always protect the taxpayers and make sure that they were their interests were taken care of. And that's what I did in Congress. I had a very conservative voting record as a Democrat. In fact, I was a member of the Blue Dog Coalition, which means that they're very conservative Democrats. I was the most conservative Democrat in Washington, D.C. In fact, I was more conservative than many Republicans in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And that's what you look at. You don't really look at a person's label nowadays, quite frankly.
Anymore, it doesn't make a bit of difference.
Well,
because
it
even Republicans are, is he really a Rhino?
Yeah.
Republican in name only? It's
Well,
what the person does.
Well, that's why I'm in this race,
Yes.
because the incumbent, her record is a liberal record. She has the label of R and has had it for a long time, but her record indicates she's the most liberal Republican in 26 states that we have here. She's the most liberal Republican in all of the southern states except the southern part of Florida. And you know we've got a lot of liberals down in Florida, in the southern part of Florida. So, you know, for her to be running advertisements calling me a liberal Democrat, you know, that's kind of an oxymoron.
Look at the newspaper right in front of you there.
It is, and we've got proof that our record. People have researched our records,
right,
and they know who the real conservative is, and the values and the morals of our people here in District 2 is conservative. I recognize that, and now as I step back into politics, I have labeled or I have paired the man up with the party that is considered to be conservative, and you're going to see a tremendous work ethic when we get back up in Washington as a conservative Republican. We're going to be able to make some things good happen for District 2.
Right.
Well, let us be real clear, too. We tend to be fair and balanced.
Sure, you are.
And we did invite Congressman Roby. I would like to make that clear, that we issued the invitation to her. She did not come, but I want to be sure that we let you know that she was invited.
Well, Virginia, let me elaborate on that somewhat. We've had 18 congressional forums throughout District 2 in 15 counties. We've had 18 to date, and we've had her only attend one. It was the very first one. She stayed about 30 minutes and left, and we haven't seen her since. And the people deserve better. They deserve someone to be able to stand up before them, answer the hard questions, answer their inquiries. I've got questions I would like to have answered, and I can only assume the answers as I perceive them. I would like for her to be able to answer those questions. So it's doing a disservice to her constituents. That's why I'm also running, because I've heard throughout this district they haven't had a representation, appropriate representation in Washington. And they've asked me, hundreds, and I would even say thousands of people have called me on a number of occasions asking me to please get back in, please hear what they have to say, and please go to Washington and represent their interest and not go to Washington and join the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about the importance of committees.
Sure.
So basically, when you get to Washington, you have to get on the right committees, in particular for the people, the constituents that you are there to represent.
That's right, Virginia. Alabama is very agricultural based. Agriculture is the #1 industry in Alabama. It's very heavily populated, the agricultural industry in District 2. We have 2 military bases in District 2, Maxwell, Gunter, and Fort Rucker. And a lot of families, a lot of people depend on jobs that are being provided there. And if anything happens to those in those areas, we need to know about it. We need to have somebody at the table. Did you know that we have no representation on the Armed Services Committee? We have no representation on the Agriculture Committee at this time. Bill Dickerson and Terry Everett and myself were on those 2 very, very important committees for over 50 years, and we had built up a lot of seniority, we had built up a lot of goodwill, and had a great reputation. In fact, Bill Dickerson was chair of the Armed Services and did a great job for Fort Rucker and Maxwell. Having no representation on those 2 committees really jeopardizes our situations here in Alabama. In Washington, and I've been there and I know the routine.
Know the inner workings.
In Washington, you've got all these committees. They're all important at some point in some area. The question is not whether or not that committee is important in Washington. The question is, what is the most important committees for your back home district? So being on the appropriations, and we refer to the appropriations in Washington as the Wine and Dine Committee, because if you're on the appropriations, you get invited to all the receptions and all the parties. And if you want to be popular in Washington, you can get on that committee if you so choose. They offered it to me, by the way, but I was a little, I was not going to play games with them. So I turned it down immediately, said no, I'm not interested. I wanted to stay connected to the people in my district. So it's important, but the question is not whether or not that committee is important in Washington. It's what's most important for your district back home.
Yes.
And so what? And so Armed Services and Agriculture are the most valuable committees for District 2 here in Alabama. She got off of those 2 committees voluntarily and got on this Wine and Dine Committee, so that one reason only, to be popular in Washington, D.C., and to raise a lot of money. And she's raised a lot of money in her campaign re-election, over $2 million. So my position is, I'm going to go back to Washington. We're going to get back on these very important committees for Alabama, and we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to protect our military bases, we're going to protect our veterans, and we're going to protect our farming and agriculture industry here in Alabama. That's what we do in Washington for the benefit of our district, not to go up to Washington and try to be popular.
Right.
Now, I do want to ask you something that's really important to our viewers too, and that is, where do you stand in the support of President Trump?
Very much so. He is trying to drain the swamp, #1. I'm trying to help him do that, and I'm going to do it come Tuesday a little bit. But when he stood, the night he was elected, and he stood and said, it's time we put America first. You know what? I've been saying that for 10 years. When I was elected 10 years ago, I said it when I accepted the fact that I had won. When I was talking to the people and the supporters, I said, you know, it's time we put America first. He said that the night he was elected, and I right then immediately said, you know what, he and I have got the same plan. I will go to Washington. I will be not a puppet or a rubber stamp for him. I will be his partner, and we will work hard for America. And then also, if anything happens, if he was to come up with some plan that might hurt Alabama, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to sit down. We're going to have a man-to-man talk, and we're going to do whatever. I'm going to do whatever I can to support him, but I'm also going to try to convince him not to hurt Alabama, mitigate any damages it might cause, such as tariffs, you know, on agriculture products. Our farmers are very concerned about that. So If he introduces a tariff that's going to hurt our farming industry, I'm going to be there to talk to him, discuss it, and try to mitigate any damage that it might do for our farmers. Right now, we don't have that.
The other thing I like, though, that you were saying at one other time was, I think people are sick and tired of this gridlock and the constant fighting. And your record has been one of reaching across, working with, understanding the power and the partnership. And I assume, or our viewers would like to know, are you planning to not be an extreme one way or the other? What is your program?
My plan, Virginia and Jack, is to be a strong representative for the people here in the district. I will not go to Washington and try to say one thing, then come home and say another. I'm going to be a strong supporter of the president, but I'm also going to be a strong advocate for District 2 and the people of Alabama. And like I said, I'm going to, if he's doing something good, I'm going to support him. I'm going to be his team player. But if he comes up to, if it jeopardizes our welfare here in the district, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a head-to-head talk, and we're going to mitigate any negative effect it'll have on our district. And we need more of that. We need mature,
Absolutely.
honest communications.
We need
and
true representatives.
And we don't need to jump on somebody's coattail. You need to run on your own record.
Yes.
And people in Alabama are very stubborn. They're very patriotic.
Yes.
And they're very conservative.
Yes.
And they don't want somebody to just be a yes person. They don't want somebody to be a rubber stamp. They want somebody to be honest with them. They want somebody to work hard, and they want somebody who they can trust will go to Washington and say one thing, come back to their home area and say the same thing. And that's what we promised to do, and that's what we did before, and we're going to continue doing that.
Good. Well, thank you for what you've done in the past. We look forward to seeing what happens moving forward. And of course, we want to let our viewers know, do your homework. Make sure that you don't just listen to ads, but find out what's truly what truly works for the best of Alabama. And just remember this, we did invite both candidates to be part of this forum today, and we'll be right back right after this.